Greetings, we're going to be talking today about the Counter-Reformation, and I have put on a suitably Catholic t-shirt in honour of the occasion. The main point that historians get exercised about with the Counter-Reformation is whether it's a Counter-Reformation or it's a Catholic Reformation. And there is I think this is probably a completely false debate. It's been going on now for about a century, and it's not really very helpful. But the basic point is this, that a Counter-Reformation, the term Counter-Reformation, implies that it's simply a reaction to the Reformation, and that the reform programme which we associate with the middle years of the 16th century onwards, that reform programme would not have happened had it not been for the Reformation, that it's a reactive series of events. The term Catholic Reformation implies, firstly, a parity, that there is an equally exciting and significant spiritual movement within the Catholic Church. So you've got Luther and the Protestant Reformation on the one side and the Catholic Reformation on the other. The Protestants haven't got it all their own way. That's the first understanding. And the second understanding is that it would have happened anyway without there being a Reformation. And the normal argument that's implied is that if one looks at late medieval spirituality and religious movements, we can see reformist drives, we can see attempts to codify religion, to organise the principles of the church, to support new religious orders, i.e. monks mainly, but also friars and people that don't fit into any other category. Monks active in the world in the main sense, and that all of this is proof that the Catholic Reformation, that a reform of the church would have happened anyway. We can go beyond that, and there's the argument put forward by historians like Brenda Bolton, that what we've got really with the medieval church is a church that's in a constant state of renewal, and that we shouldn't be surprised in the 16th century to find another period of renewal. In other words, there are waves of reform that would have happened, that happen independently of external challenges. I'm not sure these are very helpful. You know, it's sort of rather counterintuitive to sort of argue whether something would have happened anyway, because we can't really test it. There is another third view, which I find very exciting, which was put forward about 40 years ago by a man called John Bossy, and that we have in a sense, a single Reformation. A single Reformation when people discover what the Christian religion is all about. And whether it comes from Protestantism, Luther and Calvin, or whether it comes from Catholic clergymen is irrelevant. Previously, religious belief had been vague. Most people didn't understand what they were doing. Many people mix and match, not just in the way I've spoken about of Protestantism and Catholicism, but they mix and match sort of basic elements of Christianity with retained elements of pagan worship. And we can certainly find that places like Slovenia, i.e. Carmelo, Corinthia, bits of Corinthia, a bit of Styria, where we have outbreaks of what appear to be sort of ritual dancing pagan dancing, made Dionysian in origin, no doubt. Everything's Dionysian. And Bossy would argue the same with witchcraft, that actually what is happening, because from about 1550 onwards, people start discovering there huge numbers of witches going around burning them. What people discover is that a large amount of the population aren't Catholics or Protestants. They're believing in something quite different and believing in the powers of what we might call sympathetic magic, i.e. if you do one thing, then something else will follow. If you throw a toad in a pot, then somebody will die, and sort of nonsense. And I find this a very interesting and teasing formulation. Again, it's pretty difficult to prove, and I think the evidence is not good that there were very large numbers of pagan people around. In fact, the majority of people are going to church, they are listening to bits and bobs of religion, and they are generally pretty terrified by the prospect of going to hell. And I think ideas that they would consort with dubious people who are engaged in incantations, I think that's a bit far-fetched. I want to deal this time with just one element, to my mind, the really important aspect of the Counter-Reformation, and that is the Council of Trent. Popes don't like councils. They'd had a lot of councils in the 15th century. And the first thing the councils had done in 1415 was assert the primacy of the council over the Pope, i.e. what the council decided the Pope had to do. And the council, when it meets at Basel, starts deposing popes on grounds of the usual crimes. They're always accused of sorcery, incest, consorting with demons. So these are the usual exciting things that popes are accused of doing. Not surprising that Luther picks up part of this language in his description of the papacy. So popes don't like councils, and I think in about 1460, I think there's a papal bull called Uni Genitus that actually declares that appeals to a council over the Pope is a heretical principle. But nevertheless, the popes don't want to give way to a council. Emperor Charles V and Ferdinand, his brother, are insistent that a council has to take place. Their idea of what a council should involve, is it should sort out and come to doing a deal with the Protestants. It should arrive at a formula to restore the seamless robe of Christ. Remember, nothing appears in the Bible by accident. And Christ, when he's on the cross, the Roman centurion and his soldiers, Roman centurion was brilliantly played by John Wayne at one point in a film on Jesus. And as Christ dies on the cross, John Wayne utters the fantastic line, "Gee, that must be the Son of God." But anyway, John Wayne and the Roman soldiers dice for Christ's seamless robe when he's on the cross. Now, I don't know how to make a seamless robe. I imagine that one probably needs some sort of circular loom. But the seamless robe of Christ clearly is not just what Christ wore. It stands for the body of the faithful, that they should not have a seam, a division running through them. that they should be part of an undivided church. And the pressure is on, therefore, the popes to summon a council of the church to really hammer home a solution. And in 1545, a council of the church meets. It meets at Trent, which is just on the edge of the Habsburg dominions in the Tyrol. I think it's an independent bishopric, but it's also easy to get to from Rome. So it's you just nip up the road system, and there you are, just a little way into the mountains. And the council meets, and it meets in various sessions, and those sessions last a long time, and it doesn't complete until 1563, and it's a meeting of all the important bishops, archbishops, abbots, theologians, heads of universities. They all go there in order to discuss the condition of the church and the state of religion. And what they do is not a compromise at all. It is instead an affirmation of standard Catholic doctrine. All of the aspects that we associate today with the Catholic Church were laid down emphatically at Trent as part of a great scheme of belief. Purgatory. It's validated. It's true. Veneration of saints. Saints can't be prayed to as if they were Christ, but they can be asked to mediate. They can, in other words, they can be respected and chapels put up to them. The authority of tradition as a whole is upheld, and so I'm just looking at and traditional Catholic doctrine is confirmed in all its particulars. But it's more than that. The Catholic Church affirms that the tradition of remission of sins by acts of faith, that is a key to salvation. But it still stresses that one has to be doing these deeds with a good heart and good purpose. It is not enough just to flick some money in a coin box and reckon you can get away with robbing the local post office. And it pushes towards a new type of Catholic worship. Catholic churches are gradually transformed under the impact of the Council of Trent. They start being participatory in their religious services. They start to preach inside the church. Previously, if you wanted to hear preaching, it was very rare that you'd hear it in a church. You might in Bohemia in the 14th century, but you wouldn't hear it many other places. You'd have to go outside and listen to friars who would preach. Now we have short sermons in church in order to bring home the critical aspects of the Catholic religion. So we have participation. We have the idea that religion should be beautiful, that churches should represent and give a glimpse of heaven, and church interiors will be, from now on, not just dark places, gloomy places, a bit like Greek Orthodox churches. They will be illuminated, they will be lit, they will have candelabra, they will have statues in gilt that reflect the light, and there will be a new splendid architecture, and that architecture is the architecture of the Baroque, i.e. of a highly ornate, decorated style that attempts to give a profound aesthetic experience, a profound cultural experience that appeals to the soul. And on top of that, we will have music being played, not just any longer the chants of monks. Rather dreary, I find. There's nothing with this time of the year, dreary music. I dislike nothing more than a brass band banging out Christmas carols in the local shopping centre. Thank goodness we don't have to go through that this year. But we have, from now on, a much more enjoyable type of music than just monks bleating on. We have music played on organs. So, in other words, the Council of Trent, yes, it sorts out doctrine, yes, it affirms tradition. It gives a structure of belief to the Catholic Church that is coherent and cohering for the first time, but it also really gives us something terribly important with Central Europe, and that is a type of architecture, a type of church, exterior and interior, the Baroque, that will be one of the defining features of Central Europe and one of the defining features of the Habsburgs. Thank you.